Something's burning, and yet we're going to continue with this podcast nonetheless. If alarms start going off or water starts... Wait, do we not have any sprinklers in here?
We don't even have a smoke alarm.
Good God, how could they rent this place? Wow. There are probably sprinklers above the ceiling tile.
It'll take a long time for the smoke to seep up there. Maybe not. I don't know.
Well, reporting to you live from the death trap that is our office, here is the Video Reformation Podcast. I am Ben Oliver.
I'm Justin Plant.
We are the co-founders of Storyboard Media, and we are your guides on your journey to videoing better. Or something. Okay, so today we're going to have a hearty discussion about pre-production.
Yeah,
right?
I mean...
It's that second phase of our 7 phases.
Sure.
I interrupted you.
No, I was just going to say, normally we're here to talk about strategy and how to build a strategy, implement strategy, how to use video effectively. This is certainly a big part of video, though.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have asked for what it takes to produce a video. And so, the first thing you have to do is, well, A, get your strategy in place. A lot of people seem to forget that one. But then next is pre-production.
Yeah. And that's what we're going to talk about today after we hear from our new sponsor. We have a new sponsor this week. As usual, we only do these 1-week sponsorships. So our sponsor today is Fight Club. The first rule of Fight Club, this is not going to work. Okay, let's see. That was dumb. I don't know why they agreed to sponsor us. Let's move on to our sponsor for next week and just move into this week. See if I can find it. Okay. Welcome to our new sponsor, I See Dead People, the Mid-South's premier cryogenic freezing lab. Freeze your dead relatives now and we'll thaw them out when there's a cure for what ails them. I See Dead People. Spoiler alert, Bruce Willis was dead the whole time. All right, well, that's seems to be a futuristic kind of cryo lab.
Yeah.
Not sure the audiences intersect here, but, we'll take the sponsors we can take, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Now, am I right in that you have never seen The Sixth Sense?
I have not seen it.
So you didn't even get that last part of their cleverly written promo that they wrote for us?
Everybody knows, whether you've seen it or not, I think everybody knows that part.
What is the statute of limitations on spoilers?
God, today with all the social media?
Like 3 days?
Seconds?
Yeah. All right, well, I See Dead People, our brand new sponsor. Welcome to them. Let's see how long this lasts. Okay, so pre-production, yes. It is phase 2 in our 7 phases. It is heavily informed by strategy, and I think there's a lot of levels of production. There's a lot of different amounts of pre-production work, and I think some that we're going to get into today. I think we just need to define who it is, like who's the person we're talking to.
Let's just set a standard for this conversation. We've seen quite a large trend of companies bringing production resources in-house. But we also get a lot of calls where they have no idea. This is their first production, and they have no idea what they're doing. They want some professional help.
No one on staff.
Right. No one on staff.
Maybe a marketing department.
Sure,
right?
marketing, sales, a regular B2B company. So we're going to go with that assumption that there are no in-house resources for video. Even if you have a copywriter, that's not a screenwriter. Even if you have someone who's been on camera for, doesn't make them an actor.
Right.
So let's just go ahead and set that as a standard for this conversation. No one in your company will be involved, except for
in approvals and
revisions.
Yes, and signing checks.
But that's perhaps a little unrealistic, but you can kind of.
But I think if we set the bar there, everyone can kind of extrapolate.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have that.
I have this. I have that. I can manage that. So and so can manage that part. Right. These are the parts that need to be there.
Mm-hmm.
So we've identified that we're talking to a B2B company with no in-house video crew, no one on staff with any whatever,
film experience.
with any film experience. Then I think it's important to define who the resources are then outside their organization who can help them.
Sure.
Because I think I think it's a little bit of a gray line, but there are production companies that only like to be handed a script and storyboards and say, shoot this. And there are video agencies who like to be handed a strategic purpose and come up with a creative concept and scripts and storyboards before they shoot it. And there's probably another way to define those at each of those steps in between, and we'll be going through those steps. But talk to me a little bit more about a production company versus a video agency.
Sure. So we're a video agency that's in this young era of this industry. That's the best way we can define ourselves.
Lord knows there's no way to like Google business development for video agencies because we've tried.
Yeah.
There's just nothing out there.
So we're a video agency. I would like to think there are maybe two types of video agencies. There's the ones like us who are full service video, where we can help develop video strategies. We can produce the content, distribute and promote that stuff, analyze it, feed that back into, all the 7 steps.
Yeah, essentially an outsourced video department.
Exactly,
basically.
Yeah. And those end up becoming, like us, they're becoming more of a partner with the company and less transactional.
Sure.
There are also video agencies that just have a lot of just pure creative resources and connections to production companies. So you might go to this video agency, if you've already got your strategic concept, hand it to them, say, here's our budget, help us out. So then they would develop the creative, they would then hire the right people for the production of that. Then there's a production company. And a production company typically likes to just get the script, and sometimes like they'll get all this stuff from an independent producer who's even kind of a step in between. Sure. But let's just pretend the production company has a producer, all that stuff. So production companies like to get all the creative and then there's still a lot of creative decisions to be made after the script or whatever is introduced. But production companies are more focused on the actual production. Of course, production is a very expensive day.
Yeah.
And typically the more time you spend on your pre-production, planning everything out, the less mistakes will happen in production, therefore the less time you'll take in production, therefore typically the more money you'll save. So that's why pre-production is so important.
Well, and just to be clear, production is the most important because it's got the most people involved, right?
Sure.
I mean, you've got
certainly everything's got asterisk.
With what we're gonna lay out, it's got the most people involved. You got your day rate for your talent, you've got your day rate for your director, your day rate for your producer, your day rate for your gaffer, your day rate for your audio person, your day rate for your hair and makeup, your day rate for God knows what else. You got your craft services. I mean, they're just hard costs that are part of production days that make it almost necessary to make those days as efficient as possible. So that's why, I mean, instead of just saying production is the most important part, I mean, that's why. It's just because the people who are involved all need to be paid their wage, and that's a lot of people doing a lot of good work. And if you can get it done in one day, you're better off than it taking 1.5 days or 2 days. Because oftentimes once you get to that second day, whether you're doing it for an hour or 10 hours, it's going to be the same rate. So, okay, so let's kind of get into the phases or the steps here. I guess phases is the bigger picture thing, but what are kind of the steps and the necessary elements of pre-production? It seems to me if you've got a roadmap or a consistent strategic, a comprehensive strategic concept that you're working from, the next step is to take that and someone's got to turn that into a creative concept.
So tell me give me an example of a strategic concept and then help me color that in with some creative.
Sure. So a strategic concept is purpose, audience, where we're going to be showing this, what we want it to do, what are the KPIs we're going to measure with this thing, right? So it's a video that introduces our brand to the market in a human and fun way, right? I mean,
Sure.
that could be kind of a strategic concept, and its purpose is, brand awareness piece, and it's going to be distributed through paid promotion on LinkedIn and YouTube pre-roll, whatever, right? So that's kind of your strategic framework. We know why we're making this video. We know what we want it to do.
And, yep.
So then you've got to kind of take those elements and figure out because I believe there are probably infinite ways, what is the best way, or what are the best ways to creatively do that, right? So you can key in on introducing your brand in part of that description, right? Okay, well, that's something we have to do. So what are the elements that we need to, is it about, our top 3 features and benefits, right? Is that how we're going to introduce our brand / product? You kind of get those points that you want to make. But then the other part of the description was in a human and lighthearted or fun way, right? So then you can start making decisions that, well, maybe it makes sense to actually show people in this as opposed to maybe go with animation, right? So there are all kinds of they happen quickly, and they happen 1,000 times as you're developing a concept. But I see kind of creative decisions as you've got one of 2 or 3 or 4 options, and you get to go you've got that map. That strategic concept is that map that guides you to the right creative decision. Well, which of these options, live action, animation, animals, people, employees, actors, is it a host, are we creating a character? Those are just who could be in the thing, right? So which one best serves your strategy? Well, if your strategy is to humanize, let's eliminate animals. Let's eliminate live action, right? So the creative treatment then, instead of being a video that introduces our brand to the world in a fun and lighthearted way, your creative concept is that thing that kind of opens with, we open on an empty warehouse.
Sure.
And there are papers strewn about, blah, blah, blah. It's less about camera direction. It's more about getting a sense of what this thing actually looks like through some kind of written treatment.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Some of the other elements, what are the other elements in a creative treatment?
I mean, length, format.
I love if it's either like a mood board kind of page or inspiration. Like here's a video, or here's a style that we saw that would work really well for this, and put in 2 or 3. I think the more options you can put in when you're using inspiration are key, because you don't necessarily want to make it seem like, well, we're going to copy this, right? But we like this element of this and this element of this, and
inspired.
We like how they created this character that's kind of a jackass, but also a little bit lovable, but it's immediately identifiable as a character, and that's the person who guides us through introducing us to our brand or whatever, right?
And this video shows how they integrate motion graphics with live action.
Yes.
And we like that element.
Yeah.
To show your software or whatever it is.
Yeah. So it's really there to get anybody who hasn't been involved in the process so far to understand what this video is going to look and feel like. Really. I think an important element too of the creative treatment is you want to think about what your audience to think, feel, and do as a result of the video, because do is something that you've determined in the strategic concept, but think and feel is really something that fits better most times as a part of the creative treatment. I want them to think that we're a new and exciting brand that knows what we're doing, and I want them to feel entertained. I want them to feel like this is something new, and I want them to do fill in blank from strategic concept, kind of.
Yeah.
Or I want them to, usually that's the best way to go, is just filling in the blank from the strategic concept. So it's that think and feel part of it that isn't present in the strategic concept.
All right, so that is the first step in pre-production.
Yeah, and now we basically know what this thing is going to look and feel like.
Yep. After the first step, is there a second step, and a third step, and a fourth step?
I think there's creative concept, and then there's just ready, set, go.
Everything else.
And everything else can. Some of it should happen concurrently. Some of it can happen concurrently. I think locking down your key crew is an important part of it, but crew in the sense of like your producer, director, and writer, as opposed to like your lighting person and the best boy and all those kinds of things. That is necessary, but I think that tends to come later.
Now, of course, you can simplify all this and hire a one-man band, right?
Sure.
Ben and I have both been one-man bands years and years and years
Separately,
ago.
not together. That would be a two-man band.
Yeah.
Like
we've been
the
a
White
two-man
Stripes.
band, and then we've grown consistently. But we're talking about something that's probably going to end up being a lot more professional, probably a more scripted type of thing, versus a one-man band who films your CEO in his office on any given Tuesday.
Which, as you may have said earlier, if it wasn't in the edited out part, probably wasn't a real creative treatment anyway. Somebody just said, let's do this.
Yeah, let's get our CEO to talk about whatever, because he's attractive and jovial. And
Yeah, unless you're fundraising, I don't think anybody wants to see your CEO in a video.
Some CEOs are great, to be honest. Some are great.
Sure.
I mean, I'm not going to deny it. There's some people that would be great on camera.
Yes. But I imagine those are rarer than I think.
Then it starts.
I think let's get our CEO on video and let's do testimonials are like the top two kind of
Obvious.
lazy go-tos.
They're accessible.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, I've seen my competition do that.
Yeah.
That looks easy enough. Who's this one person I can hire to make? And sometimes you got to go simple.
Yeah. Well, and that goes to the attainable part of the manifesto, right? Again, what we're laying out here is kind of an ideal situation. If you can't build this kind of crew and build this kind of process and outsource this level of work, don't let that stop you from making video. If all you have is your CEO, then find someone on staff to get your CEO on camera. That's fine, but that's for a different day. So yeah, I think the most important, once you've kind of got that creative treatment, you got to make sure, and you probably already have a producer in place, because the producer is probably the person who helped find the person to come up with the creative treatment if they weren't part of that
Kind
team
of
that came
attached
up
to
with
that,
the creative treatment. But at this point, you've got to have your producer in place, because your producer is basically the person who makes it all happen. It's hard to define outside of that. It's just they're the one that makes sure that people get hired and people show up when they're supposed to show up, and finding the right location and negotiating rates and all those things.
You'll see on movie credits, there's a dozen producers: executive producer, associate producer. In this situation, for most corporate video, a producer is fine. Maybe an associate producer to do some of the paperwork or whatever. But one, maybe 1.5 producers is perfectly fine. Especially at this level, they've got the connections to help them fulfill all the needs for this type of shoot.
And sometimes you also get a producer director, right? Which is one person who knows how to get the crew together and get locations and do all that stuff, but also is, the on-set captain. I think the role of director is important too, especially when it comes to if note to listeners, if you are one of these B2B companies without film resources on staff, if you're going to be on set that set has a director, and that director is the only person who should be consulting or directing,
telling people what to do,
the actors and probably the crew on what to do. As a client, your role is to be there to advise the director, but your job is definitely not to tell anyone what to do. And that may sound harsh, but that's the way these things work. So if you have to have a conversation with your director before the shoot, day of the shoot, whatever, and say, how do you want me to give you feedback? You got to work that out beforehand. But director is the only person on set who's talking to certainly actors and oftentimes crew.
That's why it's important to have the director well in advance of the shoot, so that the client, the producer, the writer, everybody can come to a consensus on what this is going to be.
Yes. Well, and in higher budget productions too, the director is probably the person who's most responsible for the creative treatment also.
Yeah.
So again, this isn't necessarily when you bring these people in,
Step by step.
but and then I think the third kind of key crew person here is a writer, right? That's a person who may have been involved in the creative treatment, may have provided some insights. Writers are almost magical people. Like, they know how to create characters and write other people, but it's important to that, and maybe this just bleeds in a little bit to script writing, which is one of the next steps that can start, but it's important that that writer have experience writing for video or film, right? Because just taking a copywriter is someone who's used to just writing and telling, right? They're writing the written word as it's going to be read. Whereas a script writer is someone who understands how to build in what the visuals are, right? Create characters.
They write action.
Create their movements,
Yeah.
right? Sometimes even build in camera movements, in talking to the director about how certain things work. So, just because this is another thing, just because you may have a copywriter in your marketing department doesn't mean that person should be writing your video script, because the actual writing of content is maybe 1/3 of what the script writing part is.
Right now, we've got an active project where we've hired the writer. The writer sat with a technical director. The technical director and she worked together to come up with the ideas. Then she went and wrote it. Then she consulted back with the technical director. Then the CMO got involved. And then, or maybe creative director at the company, I forget it.
VP of product marketing, I think.
And then it has to go to like a senior technical director to make sure that everything
to make sure
is
that it's all technically accurate.
very technically accurate.
Yes.
And then one of us is going to finally get involved as the director to say, all right, I like this. How can we change this, but still hold true to that senior technical advice?
Yeah. Which gets to something that needs to be addressed in this episode too, is how long does this process take? And this particular process is 6 2-minute scripts, right? They're all going to be recorded in one day, and we are.
Example.
Yeah. This particular example is 6 2-minute scripts. We're 4 weeks into writing at this point. I think there was kind of the technical outline, then the discussion between the technical and the writer. Then the writer did all those things that you laid out. Those have taken about, this is either the 4th week or the 5th week.
And luckily, we're working with a client who has a lot of creative abilities too.
Yeah.
And so most companies don't even have that much. So this process could either be longer or it could be a lot shorter by just putting all the responsibility on one person.
Right.
This is just to say it can get hairy, but that's why you work with a producer. Professionals.
Yeah. Well, no, a producer, yes, to keep it all organized, but also professionals so that you're hiring the people who know how to do this right. Because if you could put a copywriter with the technical writer, you would get, well-written articles, but not video scripts, right? When you read these scripts, you see that she's been writing these lines for an actual person to be delivering to camera who has a character. Based
on the person that we've actually hired, too.
Exactly.
The actor that we've cast for this role.
Yeah.
Because she's very lively.
And well, and that was part of...
creative.
Maybe this is just jumping around, but... Yes, that was part of the creative treatment, was that we needed the host to be someone, because it is a very technical topic, we needed a host who was engaging and personable. And jumping ahead...
There is no ahead or behind.
There is no ahead. So this, this example is a perfect example, because this was one that as soon as our writing team, client and our writer, started writing, we also started the casting process. And what was interesting is that we got a whole bunch of really talented people to send us auditions, video auditions. And, well, first of all, we got a pick list, which is basically a whole bunch of headshots, and some of them have prior video experience and some don't. You pick what you want from that. You get auditions from those people. We found 3 people that we really liked, but we felt like they played their auditions too safe. And we asked each of those 3 people to do a second audition on video and just take more risks. And the one that took the most risks set that bar for the kind of performance she could give us. and we knew we could dial her back in a little bit, right? That was a little bit too risky for this particular project. But it, so even the casting process
it was
took,
quite risque.
well, yes, it was risk and risque, but it was tasteful.
Sure.
Right? But we know that that she has her own creative ideas to read a very technical script a certain fun way, and it was pretty clear that she was the one that we needed to select. Now, then sharing that casting decision with the writer,
it informed the writing process.
Informed the writing process too. So it's you said it toward the beginning, it's a chicken egg kind of thing. I mean, it all and we're bouncing all around here.
Let's continue down the list of crew. So who needs to be on set on a professional production?
Yeah.
We've got producer,
yep.
and anyone else that has a producer role.
Yep.
Director, writer. What in order of importance? What comes next?
I think probably if you've got a director, you want them to then refer you to a director of photography that they like working with.
So what does that mean?
So a director of photography is essentially the person responsible for what goes through the lens. So essentially what you're capturing, which means not just which cameras and which lenses are used, but also how scenes are lit.
Wide angle, tight.
Wide angle, tight, right? And a lot of that is informed by the director in the script and in the shot list. But they're choosing the right camera. If it's, let's say it's live action, but it's green screen, there may be a camera that's better suited for green screen work than something that if it were just like a straight up documentary style approach. So essentially they're responsible for, I mean, you could even break it down to like the photons of light that go through the lens and hit the sensor in the camera, which means they're responsible for camera lenses and light, basically. Now, that doesn't mean that that doesn't mean that they're necessarily the person moving the lights.
Right.
The person who's moving the lights is the gaffer. And if you can find a really talented, like we've got some really talented gaffers in this area, so
or pulling from Atlanta too.
Yeah, and so the director of photography gaffer relationship is so close that the gaffer ends up kind of setting the scene. The director of photography then looks through the camera and says, "Oh, that's almost perfect. Let's just tweak this and this."
Yeah, I need a little blue over here, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. Or wouldn't it be cool if we did a, I don't know,
negative fill on the side of the fade?
Yeah. But that director of photography also, if you're at that level, isn't probably a person who's hitting record or setting focus on the camera too.
By the way, negative Phil is not a good person to have on set. He just brings everybody down.
He's a jackass. He is.
Little production joke there.
That's a doozy.
Where were we?
I don't know, but Negative Phil's now sitting at the table. Negative Phil's not a real person. He's just like an imaginary character that when you say his name 3 times, he just appears.
Careful.
That was 2. So camera operator, you could also, depending on how many cameras there are, how big the crew is, I mean,
you may need locations.
You may need focus pullers. You may need, I mean, there's all kinds of
someone who builds the camera.
Honestly, it's the kind of thing that, again, if you're hiring a production company or video agency, they're responsible for those decisions.
You don't have to worry about any of this stuff.
Right, and then even going down from that, the director is going to say, I need a DP on this who's worked on XYZ type of projects before. Or, you know what, between myself and the gaffer, I think we'll be fine. If we work with this person or this person, they're really great gaffers, they'll get me the light I need. And then maybe you don't need a DP and you need a camera operator. So, again, this is all, in there. I think, after you've, that's kind of the visuals, right? You've got your director, you got your gaffer, you got your DP, camera operators, whatever.
Light, actor,
yeah.
That stuff.
And then audio is, I almost hesitate to put it.
This is video, Ben.
It is. That's true. It's not video and audio. It's video.
This is video.
Except, how many times have you watched a video that has terrible audio and you just can't? Like, we're just so much more willing to put up with crappy video
and good audio
than we are good video and crappy audio.
Yep.
So audio is hugely important. I was about to say I hesitate to put it below DP, But an audio person is another trap. It seems like recording audio is probably a pretty easy thing to do, but when you hire a professional, my God, the difference is just ridiculous. So be good to your audio person. Find and hire a good production company who has a good audio person. Or if you happen to be producing this yourself, find a good audio person. Who brings coffee and bagels?
Sometimes the producer, sometimes a production assistant. They're depending on the type of set you're on, union, non-union. I mean, union is a whole different ball game, and we work in a right-to-work state, so we don't.
No unions.
Don't have to work in that realm. Not to say that they're bad. I mean, we've worked with plenty of union crews in other states, but it's a whole different world when you're working with union. Everyone has their very own job, and you can't do that job that someone else does. If you pick up a stool on set and move it somewhere else on set, you can get either chewed out or fired.
Yeah.
Here, in this world that we're discussing, as a producer, in the role I play most often, I'm perfectly fine going to get bagels as long as everything's happening fine on set.
Yeah.
I'm perfectly fine going and sitting on the couch and doing some work on my computer. I'll do anything from the most menial tasks to the most important things, working with the client, whatever, just keeping the client back. But besides all the things we listed before, production assistants are great to have on set. They know that they're being hired as a gopher, and there's nothing wrong with that. A lot of times these are young people who are hungry to learn, or old people who are hungry to learn, or people who have nothing better going on and are perfectly capable of carrying something. Beyond production assistants, a similar role, but working more with lighting, grip, the electrical kind of world. We've got DIT. I can't remember what it stands for.
I think it's, oh God, I feel like as a producer you should know this.
Something,
I think
information.
it's digital imaging technician or digital information technician,
imaging.
one of the two.
But
I don't know, DIT.
They handle,
acronyms are there
this
for
is
a
a
reason.
very important role, especially when you've got multiple cameras, multiple locations, audio, all that stuff. All of those, the audio files, the image files, all of that stuff is being recorded onto SD cards or something even bigger and better.
Not film?
Sure, could be film, and that's even harder. But someone needs to manage where all these assets are coming from.
You got to have backups on backups on backups too.
Backups everywhere. They've got to have the right hard drives. They got to have the right computer setup, all of the right ports. They're getting fed cards day in, day out, all day, and they're documenting where what shot this was, and what camera was being used, and what scene it was, and it's a vital role if you're on a very complicated set.
Or if you're just trying to be efficient. If you're trying to get an ambitious shoot done in one day, you can't have your media management slowing down.
Can't have your DP.
Yeah.
I mean, a good DIT will make sure that you have enough memory and stuff so that you can have clean cards for the next shot. What else? Hair
and makeup, I think, is big. It's something that is oftentimes overlooked, but a good hair and makeup, especially if they're willing to do a little bit of wardrobe work, and it doesn't necessarily. So, hair, makeup, and wardrobe oftentimes go together on like corporate video level shoots because you don't necessarily need one hair person, one makeup person, one wardrobe person. Sometimes you do, but a good hair and makeup person will also do wardrobe, and even if your talent is coming to set with wardrobe options, which, note, your producer should be making sure that your talent is coming to set with multiple wardrobe options. The hair, makeup, wardrobe person is a great set of eyes to pick the right wardrobe selections. Oftentimes, even the best director doesn't necessarily know not to put prints with plaids or whatever, right? They're smart about other things. Mm-hmm. And so if you just leave it up to a director, you could have the talent in some really weird looking things. And so it's important to make sure that people aren't sweating on camera. Mm-hmm. It's important to make sure that They look as good as they can.
If their hair is the same in every shot, or there's continuity issues with clothing and hair and makeup that can happen if you're going from scene 1 to scene 4 and then back to scene 2. So all of those things are very important when you're working with a more complicated set. Or if it's just a very simple set, it's one less thing that you have to do as the DP or the producer.
Yeah.
Someone who knows what they're doing. It's about hiring professionals, and that's ultimately why you've hired a production company.
I think another role to consider that I don't think made our initial list is, you just mentioned the continuity issue, is kind of a script supervisor, continuity director type of person, right? Someone who's there to make sure that lines were delivered properly. I mean, you get down into multiple takes on some of these shoots, and depending on how you're breaking up, hey, okay, let's take it back from line 27. It's hard to keep track of whether you've gotten every single line delivered. You've got a safety version of every single line. So that can be a lot to keep track of if there are multiple actors or, kind of a detailed script, multiple days. So if you've got a script supervisor that can also be kind of a continuity director there to basically be the eyes that says, hey, we still don't have line 25, right? Or better yet, is even matching, hearing from the director which ones are the best takes, right? That was fantastic, right? And put a little star by take 6.
They've got
those
systems.
Kinds of things. So, that's another good person to have if your producer recommends it. If for some reason you're being shown a line item budget, and you're wondering what that is, just trust that your producer is making the right decision, and that's best for that
budget.
shoot. Yeah,
that's a great.
Okay, so
we've got crew.
We've got our crew.
It might be more or less depending on.
Someone's working on our scripts.
Yep.
Right. Before we start scheduling things, what's next after scripts?
I think scripts are often they're the lines, right? It may be some direction, but you've got to start pairing that up with some visuals. So this is where you might see an AV script come into play. And if the script has been approved, then a director will work with the writer, maybe even a DP, to start lining up what are these shots, and that might be creating some storyboards or some sketches or whatever.
Yeah, it could even be stick figures, sketches.
It could be some basic diagrams of the set, where your camera angles are going to be, which one's tight, wide. It's going to help you understand how many do I need all of these 3 lines in one take, or am I going to have cuts in between? So it's starting to apply some of those visuals to the audio portion of the script, I would say, is your next step.
Okay. I imagine if we've got storyboards, then we need to be considering where we're shooting this stuff.
And that also may come into play before you start making storyboards. Again, a lot of this happens concurrently. But yes, if you're going to be on location somewhere, if you're in a studio, it's still important to go scout that out and make sure that for whatever particular, especially if you haven't been there before, is there enough power for what you're trying to do? Is there enough room? Is there enough room? Is there an airport? How much extra lighting and grip equipment do you need?
Who goes on? So you've picked a location, and then you're there actually testing it out. Is that what you're saying?
Well, there's a scout, and then there's a visit, like a technical scout.
Okay.
Where scouting, so location scouting could be, let's go check out these 3 places, see what works. We're gonna pick one, and then you would bring, if you've just decided on 1 or maybe 2, then you go on a technical scout where you bring maybe your gaffer or DP. Gaffers usually have a lot more knowledge of the electrical capabilities of a location.
Yeah.
You want to bring an audio guy. I can't tell you how many times I've been impressed with how useful they are on a tech scout. Saying do you hear that? I don't hear the weird little buzzy things or whatever.
I did a test this weekend of my high frequency hearing, and I can't hear anything over 11,000 hertz, which
I'm sure
about 10 years behind. Like, that's kind of an over 50 thing.
Okay.
So I'm 10 years ahead of the game.
Is that how you...
I should be able to. Yeah, my ears are 10
Very
years older than
advanced.
my body. Yeah, I have super smart ears. But yeah, I mean, that's why they're in this business, is because they hear things, right? I mean, we see things, just with our experience, we see things that other people don't see.
But they'll hear a hum and be like, "Oh, that's the fridge."
Yeah,
And that's not the heater. That's not the AC. That's the fridge.
Yeah.
Okay. They know those things, and all that stuff. Like we said before, audio is so important to this. It's important to have someone who knows what they're doing on the Tech Scout to make sure that there are no issues, planes flying overhead, whatever. So, when it comes to lighting and sound, you're going to want to make sure that you're at the location at either, let's say you're going to be shooting on a Tuesday starting at 4 p.m. Go tech scouting at a Tuesday
At 4
before the
p.m.
shoot at 4 p.m.
Yeah.
so that you know exactly what that is. Especially like airport flight patterns, they change daily.
I just think the sun is in a
sun
different
for
place,
light,
right? I mean,
yep.
if you're not on a soundstage, right? Even if you're just shooting in your conference room, you could scout it at 10 a.m. and
Like, we don't have to worry about
they're like, oh, we're fine. It looks great in here. And then at 4 p.m., the sun is coming through
Yep.
those windows. Well, that throws everything off. So,
When it comes to location scouting, I think a lot of our clients have been surprised when we say, "Oh, we can't shoot there because that'll cost $1,000,"
right.
or they're surprised that it costs anything at all.
Right.
Why can't we just go there? Well, we went on a location scout at one of my neighbors.
I knew you were going there.
My
Yep.
neighbor's house, and we were working with. This is before we were a video agency. We were more a production partner with an agency here, and so they brought the concept to us. We were doing some scouting. Went to my neighbor's house because it was a really nice house. Now I'm direct next door. Nothing wrong with my neighbor's house.
In
but
the nice part of the
this
neighborhood.
is like $1 million plus
Yeah.
house.
Well, what was it? It was like a Thanksgiving dinner kind of thing.
We were gonna do a Thanksgiving, some holiday type
Yeah.
video. And we got there and shoot, the host, she was very, very pleasant. Showed us around.
Had we budgeted anything for location?
We budgeted $250.
Yeah.
And so at some point she asked. So Justin,
Very experiencedly, she asked.
oh yeah, because
I'm making
she's
up
lived
that
in a
word
lot of
right
nice
now.
houses.
Yes.
She said, "So what do you have for a budget?" Right? And I knew this wasn't going to be great, but I said, "Well, we got $250," and she's like, "Oh, well, I guess I could give you like a neighbor discount or something." And I'm like, "Yeah, what did you have in mind? Let's see what we can do." She's like, "Well, usually when they do photo shoots here or whatever, it's like, $1,500, $2,000 for the day." And I was glad to have the producer
Yes.
from the agency there,
Yes.
or creative director or whatever, because her eyes opened up like, that's 20% of the budget.
Yeah. We were, the way I remember is we were in this magnificent house. And the way that she asked, so what do you have for location budget? Was like, I don't think I said it out loud, but in my head it was just, uh-oh. I mean, it was like
Experience.
she knew what she was asking for, and that's the thing. We knew we had $250. We knew we were trying to get a steal. That's why we used the neighbor relationship. I mean, right?
But
always.
She's going to hire someone to professionally clean the house.
Yes.
She's going to have all the kids' stuff put away.
She's going to leave for
Going
the
to
day.
leave, yeah. Or have some nanny there that can assist if we needed something from the house. So
Yeah. So, I guess long story short, make sure you budget for locations.
yeah.
Yeah.
Or choose your locations accordingly.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so let's see. We know where we're shooting it. We know who our
When.
crew is. We know when we're shooting it. We know who our talent is.
We know
We've got a
what we're
script.
shooting.
We know what we're shooting because we've done creative treatment and storyboards. Are we ready to shoot?
We're pretty close.
Okay. I would recommend, at the very minimum, with talent, with writers, with producer, with director, with client, script read-throughs. They don't necessarily have to be full-on rehearsals. Oftentimes you have to pay the day fee to get access to it, right? You can do this in your office. You can do this in the video agency's office, whatever. But oftentimes this is the only time before set, for whatever reason, that you get to hear your talent read your writer's lines out loud and hear if they work.
At this point, everyone's got their own thoughts as to how that script is going to be read and delivered, and how that actor is going to move.
And even if there are storyboards, people can interpret storyboards different ways.
Storyboard is one frame. You've got 24 of those every second.
So, it's easy. So one, having the writer there, having the talents be the ones who are actually reading through it. The writer needs to be there so that if anything comes up where the talent says, that's not, I would say so-and-so, right? Change it to how they would say it. Make it more natural for them, those kinds of things. If there's something that the client hears for the first time, that in skimming it and reviewing the script on a screen, they approved, all of a sudden they hear it out loud and they're like, wait, that's not right. Or could we do that better or whatever. That's kind of that last script editing session. It also lets you do just some simple movements and directions, simple blocking, things like that. I mean, I remember we had a shoot last year where we had a whole ton of issues with pre-production, with actors taking the job and then not wanting the job anymore, and just all kinds of crazy things. But we were kind of stuck going through our final read-throughs, and we realized that you and I, as co-directors, had imagined differently whether the host was sitting or standing. And I had been picturing for the whole time that it was, I don't even remember which one, sitting at two desks, and you had imagined it, standing at a water cooler or something like that. It wasn't something that was in the script, and it was something where in every discussion you feel like you're on the same page, and then all of a sudden you tell someone, go stand there, and someone else is like, wait, I thought they were sitting. This is the opportunity to find these things out, and again, not have to go through that thing on the shoot day. So that's kind of your and then once you've kind of had those read-throughs, if you can do it a week before the shoot, then you're also giving your talent time to just better familiarize themselves with those lines beforehand. And if you've got a primary talent and you've got 3 extras or 3 people with maybe 1 line each, maybe they don't have to be present at that read-through. But, make sure that there are people who are actually reading those lines out loud, doing those movements, those kinds of things. Okay, so now we're ready to shoot, right?
Almost.
Okay.
There's always more you could do before a shoot. I mean, always. A couple things that are going to make it a lot easier on the shoot day. If your crew doesn't have any food or water, they're going to get very cranky really quickly. Your actors as well. They expect food. It doesn't always have to be a gourmet palette, but you would expect to have some sort of, if it's an early shoot, breakfast, lunch, dinner. It depends on how long your shoot is, but you should cover the meals, and expect there to be some leftovers. Just make sure you order enough to make everyone happy. Snacks are nice too. I don't eat on set. I don't eat much ever.
Period.
But I'm usually the one getting the food. You've got another thing that is easy to miss but really important on shoot day is parking. Where is everybody supposed to park? A lot of times this can be, you can alert your crew about where to park in the call sheet.
I think call sheets are so important.
But arranging that ahead of time with the location is important. If it's a studio, they more than likely have space for the grip truck and the crew cars and anything else that needs to be going in.
And that's another thing you can do on the technical scout of the location too, especially where's the truck going to pull up? How are we going to get the gear up here?
Ramps.
Not in a studio.
Whatever. But if you're shooting in a house, that can change things. Are you in a neighborhood? Do they live on a busy street? Do they have a driveway? All stuff's going to be important. And that's why people ask so often, what does a producer do? when Ben explained it, I mean, I've been producing for a long time, so have you. You explained it to me once that, well, the producer is the one who goes up on stage and accepts the Best Picture award. Because they're the one responsible for
Everything.
I see it as essentially you're just constantly problem solving. At any time throughout the day and before the shoot day or days, people are coming to you with problems, questions, and they need answers. So your job is to try and figure out how to answer those things as best you can. And it's not always going to be perfect, but
an answer is better than no answer.
Yep. Or I will find out, and you go find out.
Yeah.
So getting the parking under control before the day of the shoot. The call sheets are really important. It helps everybody stay on track and on schedule on shoot day. Lets everyone know where the shoot is, what time, where the closest hospital is, where parking is it going to be sunny or hot or cold?
How many company moves do we have?
Yep.
When am I going home?
Yep.
Or when am I supposed to go home? I think call sheets, just like craft services, if you're hiring professionals for your crew and for your talent, this isn't a reason to do it, but they're expecting to do it, to get those things, right? They're expecting to be fed. They're expecting to be sent a call sheet. Because that's just how a professional production is run. So, maybe that's a red flag. If for some reason the production company you've hired hasn't considered craft services or isn't going to be sending call sheets, I don't know. Maybe it's late in the game at that point, but maybe as you're vetting production companies, that's, you get them to walk through everything that they do. And, those are two things that are often overlooked, but if they are a professional company, they're going to be, considering them from the beginning.
So one of our friends, he's a producer, director. He was one of the people who asked that we explain this process.
Yeah.
And the reason he said that is because it's important for clients, especially those without a lot of video experience, to understand why it costs so much to plan for the shoot.
Yeah.
Or to just get a shoot done.
Yeah.
So how much time should something like this take? Use the example we've been using the whole time.
Yeah. We're 4 weeks into writing?
Casting, location.
We've cast. We've found our location.
Yep.
We've booked our crew.
Yep.
We will be shooting on week 6 then? 6 or 7, depending on whether
still finding out.
Yeah, 6 or 7.
It's one of the fun things.
Nope, progress last night. I think we're still good for week 6.
Okay.
So, and this is a project that, while it has multiple videos, 6 2-minute videos, as I mentioned before, it's also the second season of this particular show. So we know what we're doing a lot better this time around. In fact, one of the things we learned the first time we're doing it was that we needed more time in the writing process, because we got to that rehearsal read-through day and we mistakenly scheduled it for the day. Well, part of it was because the talent was traveling. We did it the day before the shoot. And that wasn't enough time for the talent to properly familiarize himself with the scripts for us to make any changes. So we knew we needed to add that additional week in there. So, it's going to take a few weeks to write scripts. It's going to take another, right, and then you got revisions and edits back and forth between client and production company or agency. You got to find the locations. You got to scout the locations. You got to know that you're hiring professional people and that they stay busy, because this is what they make a living doing, right? These aren't hobbyists. These are people who make a living doing this. So you got to work around their schedules. I don't know. I mean, we're looking at a 7 or 8 week pre-production overall before we get to the one shoot day on this particular project.
So there's pre-production, production, and post-production. How would you divide the time and the budget accordingly?
Well, I think production from a day standpoint is the most expensive.
One day.
Right? But it's one day. That, like we talked about earlier, that's why you try to get it into as few shoot days as possible, because there are as many moving parts. But it doesn't mean that you're going to necessarily pay your gaffer more than you're going to pay your writer, because your writer may be working for
2 or 3 weeks.
2 or 3 weeks, right? They may have 5-10 billable days that they put on this, right? So
that's a couple grand.
Yeah. And then, they say that 90% of a director's job is done before the shoot, right? So, I mean, that's kind of what we've been laying out here. These are why all these things need to be considered. So, I don't know. Like, I think, I don't know. I don't know. I was unprepared for that question.
I think it's fair to say that while production is the most expensive day
unit, yes,
it's the shortest amount of time, but it probably costs the same amount as pre-production and as post-production. Splitting that up into thirds. I mean, just with a 1-day shoot, with a decent crew, you've got a couple weeks of pre-production. That couple weeks, let's say, costs $4,500. The shoot day costs, maybe 5, 6, 7, whatever. And post-production could cost $3,500, $4,500, $5,000.
Yeah, totally depends on number of deliverables. And
if you could kind of expect that each of those segments is about the same, I think that's a decent.
Well, it's a good starting point, because if you were to go to a one-man band and say, what's your day rate? I mean, that hopefully any one-man band would be, a better business person than to just quote their day rate. Hopefully they're asking, how am I a part of this project? Who else is involved? What are the other roles? What else do I need to be doing? All those kinds of things. But, I mean,
if they don't, they're just going to show up with a camera, 2 cameras, who knows?
And maybe
audio,
some lights, maybe some, but they're buyer beware, I suppose. But yeah, I mean, directors make most of their money, even though they may get paid for days on set. They make most of their money in the pre-production. That's where they do the work.
We went to Vincent LaFerray's workshop, a directing workshop, and I think he said for a shoot day, it's $50,000, $20,000, $20,000. But he's not making all $20,000 on his shoot day. He just basically rolls all of his costs into however many shoot days, because he knows that's going to be a certain amount of prep leading up to that shoot day. So it's easy for him to charge that way. And I think that's fair.
Yeah.
He does like Nike commercials and short films and stuff.
And I think, like everything else in this episode, there's an asterisk to it. But, a good place to start is if all you're doing is calculating how much it's going to cost to crew and talent up for your shoot day, multiply that number by 3, and that needs to be, at the very least, your overall budget for the production.
Yeah.
Again, if there are multiple deliverables, if you're, doing a green screen shoot and then you're putting in a whole bunch of motion graphics with that, so then that'll inflate the post-production costs. But yeah, I think that's a pretty good rule of thumb. Let me throw this one at you. If you had, let's say you were surprised by that and had to make your crew smaller but keep it professional, who might you, I don't want to say eliminate, but what are some ways you might implement some cost savings into who's actually on set for your shoot day?
Is it limited to who?
Not necessarily.
Okay. I would eliminate location costs.
Okay.
I would use the office. I would paint a wall wherever, find a way to creatively alter the script so you can shoot it in the park. That may come with its own public.
Sure.
But try and get rid of location costs. I would you got to have your director. I would potentially hire the director to write and direct.
Okay.
I'd have a producer, because they're going to solve all the problems for you. So right now we've got producer, writer, director as one. Producer is 1, writer, director is 2. Depending on what the script called for.
Sure.
I think it's important to have someone who can do lighting and production assistant. Like someone
Yeah.
who can be basically your third man on set, whose his initial job in the beginning of the day is to set up lights, manage that process, but then is also willing to go drag stuff in from the vehicles,
Yeah.
or help set up a table for lunch or whatever it is. There are enough talented people out there who can write and direct and also operate a camera.
Yeah,
That's
what I was gonna.
It's a lot.
I think I would. I know I asked you, but I think I would. Just in terms of the money that they ask for, I think I'd rather have a really good gaffer and I'd have a really good gaffer and a good camera operator than a DP and a gaffer. And there's so much. A really good gaffer plus a good camera operator,
They'll work together
They'll
really
work
well.
together, and they almost then become a DP. A DP almost necessitates having a gaffer, then they can maybe be a camera. But I like a really good gaffer can get you really close to what a DP can do. I know there are going to be DPs who listen to this and say,
Fuck you.
"Fuck you," but if I were forced with the budget, that's probably where I would save some money, just because again, you're going to end up paying a good gaffer and a good camera operator less than you would pay a DP and a gaffer.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and like we said, I think audio is so important.
yeah.
If you're getting dialogue, even some nat sounds can really change. Natural sounds, ruffling of papers or the bicycle wheels moving, that can be a huge thing. So, audio, a camera guy, a lighting guy / production assistant, director, writer.
Yeah.
How many do I have now?
I don't know. That's
4 or 5.
That's either 4 people or 5 people.
Yep. And the producer is the one who's going to pull it all together. So.
Yeah, I think
Oh yeah, 4 people.
I think you could have a person who knows, you could have someone who's done some editing, do your DIT type work, right? And maybe there's a production assistant /
Sometimes the editor or the director is an editor as well.
Yeah.
If you're working on a very tight budget, you're going to have to cut corners, and you're going to look for people who can do a lot of things.
Yeah,
good.
Well, and a lot of professional talent are used to doing their own hair and makeup too.
Mm-hmm.
So if you had to get rid of a hair and makeup person, you could.
I would not skimp on actor.
Really? Sorry, this is just this is an issue I tend to get on my soapbox about. So,
I mean, throwing someone from your company into a very unfamiliar role, having to memorize lines.
I think it's just the shock of being in the lights and on the camera that is what weighs on people who aren't prepared for that so much.
And the ability to do the same thing every time 10 times.
Yes.
Because it's not even the actor's fault necessarily if you have to reshoot something.
Right.
Or do like 10 takes. It could be that something in the background wasn't right.
A plane flew overhead.
Or you know what? I want to get a wide shot of this too.
Yeah.
But do it exactly the same.
Yeah. I think maybe the misconception there is that talent is expensive, but they are so worth every penny you're paying them once you get on set.
You can get a pretty good actor for $500-600
$600, yeah.
With speaking role.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Again, I think it's one of those just kind of intellectually lazy decisions that companies make. Is where the default is we need to keep costs down, so we're going to use one of our employees as the talent, and we're going to write the script. It's like, why don't you tell us what the budget is, and we'll make everything work? I mean, any good production company should do that, right? Yeah, I cannot. I don't know. We're gonna do a pet peeves episode one of these points, and I'm gonna bring this point up again. But yeah, it's it's one of the best investments you can make on set is hiring professional talent instead of using non-actor employees.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's subject matter expert type stuff, write the scripts properly and hire the right talent, and they'll be able to deliver it. Okay, so now we're ready to shoot. All the other times
Sounds
it was
like a
just
trick
kind of
question.
it was before, but that was just a way to get into the next section. But I feel like actually now it's time to shoot.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, so we started with a creative treatment. We then
Develop.
did everything from there. And that's the episode. We found kind of our top line cast, or crew, rather. Maybe we started casting because that influences when we're writing scripts. Director and writer started to get together and create some storyboards so that everybody knew kind of what this was going to look like and what the other people on set day were going to have to do that day. We looked at where we're going to shoot. We figured out I don't think we've actually explicitly mentioned this, but all the people that you're hiring for this, you've got to get their availability. So you've got to all then schedule them.
And the good ones
at the right
aren't
times.
easy to...
No,
to
the good ones are not available next week.
That's why you've got so much pre-production time too, is because you've got to book them 6 weeks out.
Yeah. Then let's see. We've done our casting. We've done our location scouting.
I should just be a gaffer. Or
We're
something.
having our read-through rehearsal. Just moving on past that. We sent out call sheets. We have taken 6 or 7 weeks to do all this. We've budgeted appropriately for our pre-production, just like we would our production or our post-production. And now we're ready to shoot. So I feel like next episode is a great time for us to talk about what production looks like.
Let's do it.
All right. Well, before we sign off here, I think it's time to hear from our new sponsor again. Again, this feels kind of like a test sponsorship since our first sponsor was just so poorly thought out. I don't know what they were thinking, but their check cleared. But our actual sponsor, Icy Dead People, the Mid-South's premier cryogenic freezing lab. Freeze your dead relatives now and we'll thaw them out when there's a cure for what ails them.
ICY? Icy?
Huh?
Dead people.
There it is. And in the movie with Bruce Willis, the kid says...
See.
There it is. Icy Dead People. Spoiler alert, Bruce Willis was dead the whole time.
They've got a lot of open space right now.
They do.
I think they're even running some summer discounts because it is hotter.
Yes.
It's harder to,
Yeah. In fact, I think they have just a 1 hour cryogenic freezing session. If you're feeling too hot, you can just go in and just kind of like spend an hour chilling out.
Have you ever done the cryo chamber things?
No.
It's nuts.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Is it super cold?
It is very cold.
I imagine it would be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
3 minutes and you're cold for the next hour.
I think Ted Williams, the Hall of Fame baseball player, I think his wife and son fought in court because his son, as executor of his estates, I don't know if this is right at all, froze his head. I was getting a little bit too detailed. For what no. Well, they also put Mr. Burns in cryo to cure 37 stab wounds. But no, Ted Williams' head for some time, and maybe still, was actually frozen so that he could be, generated from something.
Sickness, illness?
I don't know. Maybe it was just to save it for posterity and create more Ted Williamses later.
Still holds up.
Last person, only person, certainly last person. So hey, cryogenesis. It's good enough for Ted Williams. It's good enough for you.
Damn sure good enough for your grandma. That's right.